Hi, third, fourth, and fifth grade leaders. We're preparing for our last lesson in this series of Lost and Found on February 23rd. This lesson, we're going to be talking about Zechariah and kind of getting to the end of all of that we've taught about the prophets. And remember, all of these lessons on the prophets have helped us understand God's big picture of what his design is for us as believers, but also for those who are not believers, to know that Jesus is the Savior and that he is the Savior King that God had promised. In our lesson today about Zechariah, we go through the whole book of Zechariah in a very short amount of time. Zechariah is a man who has many visions, and these visions help paint a picture of what God has designed for his people and it helps paint a picture of how Jesus is going to be the rescuer, savior, king for us. And so as a part of these visions, Zechariah tells the people that the Messiah is coming, that the Savior is coming, and that he would be coming on a donkey. And this paints a picture for us, maybe for the first time, of how God is preparing that Jesus is going to be the Savior King that will be riding in on the donkey at Passover before his crucifixion, and how the people will acknowledge that he is king there and that he is the Savior King. Not only is he the king that they praise as he comes in on Palm Sunday on the donkey, but he is also the Savior King, which was what put him on the cross, was people not acknowledging that he is the Savior King, God King, that God had prepared for all this time. So what we want kids to see in this lesson is that obeying God and doing God's will, as Zechariah continues to tell the people to turn away from their sin. How many of us need to hear that? Turn away from their sin and follow God. For us, following God is not necessarily easy, but it is always right. And because it is always right, we can trust that God has a design that is bigger than many of us will ever understand. During your social time today, you will have a lot of building supplies, all that we have left over, to encourage the kids to build a house. And maybe you want them all to do this together today, to use as many supplies as they can to build a house that will stand up, and what they need to build a house that is strong and will stand up. Then when you get to remember, these social activities are for you to build relationship with your kids. That's all that this is for. It doesn't relate to our story necessarily. It shouldn't. It's not meant to. You could definitely make some correlations as you're building a house to how we build the temple and how we build our foundation on God. So you could definitely talk about that as the kids are building. But really, this is a social activity just to build relationships with kids. All right. And then during your small group time, you're going to have a bag full of goodies and a large piece of cardboard. And what you're going to do, the instructions say to put the cardboard on the table all the way to the floor. I don't know that your cardboard's big enough to be able to do that. So you may want to lean your cardboard up against a chair to kind of make a ramp, or maybe you need a couple people to hold it so that you can make your ramp. And you're going to ask kids to help you predict which item they think will go down the ramp fastest. And all of this is to help paint a picture, just like Zechariah's visions helped paint a picture of sometimes what we think will happen doesn't happen. That maybe there was an item that rolled down the ramp faster than what you thought it was going to, or maybe it went so much slower than what you thought it was going to do. And so they should make a prediction, but then they should be able to talk about it afterwards and talk about were there things that surprised them that they didn't know would work out the way it did. And then you can finish with talking through your discussion questions. And I tell you this because one of the things that I think is really important for us to realize as we're leading small groups, especially small groups on Sunday, is these discussion questions are written for you to begin a conversation. Not for every kid to have the exact right answer as they leave, but we use these discussion questions as a way to begin a conversation so that we can begin to build relationship with kids, to build on sharing big things with them and helping them see how to take their next step. So I encourage you not to come out of the chute unless you totally know your small group and they know you really well. And maybe your fifth graders, they should do this more because they're going to do this when they get to student ministry. But your younger kids, they need to play more. They need to play before they're expected to have all the right answers or to dive into the Bible and to find all of those answers. They're going to need you to live it out in front of them and talk it out through them, and also give them the opportunity to hear other people around the circle and have conversation so that they can begin to grasp the big picture of the gospel and what we are presenting to them each week, in understanding that God's big story comes together to help us understand that Jesus is our Savior and that we can love and follow him with our whole lives. So your memory verse activity, after you've done some discussion questions, if you'd like to, again, remember that you may have kids in your small group that don't know this memory verse, and that is okay. Most weeks we are averaging about 20 new kids a week. And so we have kids who are not going to know these memory verses, and we want them to know that small group is a safe place for them to learn these things. And so if they don't know it, don't give them a hard time about it. Find ways that they can interact with this activity so that they can begin to know the memory verse with you and begin to build their foundation on God as well. So that's your memory verse, and then you can pray with your kids and send them on their way when their family comes to pick them up. Thank you so much for leading. Thank you for helping us all learn to take our next steps. I hope that you'll plan to join us for our huddle next Sunday after church. This huddle, we will talk about what it is to be a fully connected member at Parkway Church. You serve regularly, and we thank you for serving regularly, but I want you to know why we do what we do at Parkway, why we talk about the things we talk about, why we encourage people to take our next step. If you feel like you don't know those things, come be a part of this huddle. If you feel like you do know those things, please come be a part of the huddle so you can be a part of a discussion around a table that helps direct somebody else to know why you love Parkway Church and why Parkway Church is your home. Thank you so much for leading. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon.